You unlock your phone, and the world around you collapses. A cold message from your mother stares back at you. We've changed all the locks. You no longer have a home. Let's see how strong you really are. Each word tightens around your chest like a steel cord, turning the place you once called home into a stranger's house. For 2 days, you wander the streets, the city shifting into a maze of humiliation and buried anger. You think it's the end, that you've lost everything. But then at the very brink of despair, an email from the family lawyer appears, a small door opening onto secrets long concealed. You have no idea that this very moment marks the beginning of your family revenge story, one that will leave everyone shaken. You can still hear the echo of that message, the cruel simplicity of it cutting deeper than any scream could. But to understand how a single line could unravel your world, you have to go back to the beginning, when life felt safe, when you still believed family was unbreakable. You were once a child who lived for art. In the small sunlit room at the back of your old house, you would spend hours with pencils and brushes, sketching flowers from the garden, portraits of your father, and the curve of the oak tree outside your window. Your father, James, always encouraged you. He was patient, steady, with eyes that lit up whenever you showed him a new piece. You have a gift, close quote, he'd say, his hand warm on your shoulder. Never let anyone take it away. Those were golden years, the kind you didn't realize were fleeting. Your father was your anchor, your champion, the one who reminded you that your art was more than decoration, it was expression, truth, a piece of your soul on paper. But then came the illness. You were just a teenager when the coughs grew harsher, when the doctor's visits multiplied, when whispers in the kitchen replaced laughter. You remember sitting at his bedside, your sketchbook on your knees, trying to capture his smile before it faded. And then one morning, he was gone. The silence that followed was heavier than grief, it was the sound of a world with its foundation ripped away. Your mother, Susan, was shattered. For months, she drifted through the house like a shadow. Meals were forgotten, bills piled up, and you, barely holding yourself together, stepped in where you could. But you were young, and she was drowning. It wasn't long before Robert appeared. Robert was everything your father was not: confident, commanding, a man whose voice filled every room he entered. At first, you were relieved. He seemed to give your mother new energy, a reason to smile again. He brought flowers, laughter, and a steady income. The house changed: new furniture, polished floors, vacations you had never imagined. You wanted to believe this was a second chance for your family. But slowly, you began to notice the difference. Robert didn't see you the way your father did. Where James saw potential, Robert saw inconvenience. He valued numbers, profit, practical paths, not sketches on paper. When you showed him your drawings, he barely glanced at them. Nice hobby, close quote, he'd say, already turning away. Your mother, once your biggest supporter, began to echo Robert's tone. She told you to focus on something useful, close quote, something that would secure a future. Art doesn't pay bills, close quote, she'd remind you, her words sharp where they had once been soft. You tried to argue, but the more Robert settled into your lives, the less your voice seemed to matter. Then came Lily. Your half-sister arrived with a halo of golden curls and a laugh that filled every corner of the house. From the moment she was born, she was adored, showered with attention, gifts, and praise. You loved her, of course you did, but you couldn't help noticing how every spotlight turned toward her, leaving you in the shadows. Birthdays became smaller for you, grander for Lily. When you graduated high school with honors, the celebration was a dinner at home. When Lily took her first dance recital, there were flowers, cameras, and a party that filled the living room. You told yourself it didn't matter, but deep down, the imbalance gnawed at you. The final thread of connection to your father was the trust he left behind, a fund meant to support your education and dreams. He had worked tirelessly to build it, a safety net for the daughter he believed in. Knowing it existed gave you comfort, a reminder that he was still protecting you in some way. But Robert had a way of turning everything into his domain. Slowly, he gained control over finances, investments, and eventually the trust. When you asked about it, he would brush you off. It's being managed, close quote, he'd say. Don't worry about it. You try to focus on your art, to carve out a space for yourself even as the walls closed in. At college, you thrived in the studio, surrounded by others who saw value in what you created. Your professors praised your vision, your classmates admired your technique. For a while, you felt free, away from Robert's shadow, away from the constant comparisons. But home was never the same. Every visit ended in arguments. Robert questioned your choices, mocking your degree in fine arts. Your mother, once a woman who framed your drawings, now told you to grow up and think realistically. Even Lily, still young but impressionable, repeated Robert's words, teasing you about being a starving artist. The wedge grew deeper with every year. You wanted your mother to see you, to defend you, to remind you that you mattered. Instead, she nodded along with Robert, her silence as sharp as any insult. The breaking point came when you discovered the truth about the trust. You had gone to the bank, desperate for clarity, only to learn that the money your father left for you had been reallocated. Robert had convinced your mother to use it for the family, for Lily's education, for investments that he controlled. When you confronted them, the argument was explosive. "It was for all of us," close quote, your mother said firmly, though her eyes wavered. Robert stood taller, smug. "Your father wanted to secure the future. Lily's future is the family's future." Your hands shook, your heart pounded. "It was my father's gift to me," close quote, you said. "You had no right." But your words bounced off stone. Robert dismissed you, your mother looked away, and in that moment, you realized how completely you had been erased from your own family's story. You left that night with a suitcase and your sketchbooks, vowing never to return. It was terrifying, yes, but also liberating. You rented a small apartment, lived on instant noodles, and poured your heart into your work. You took commissions, sold paintings on sidewalks, taught classes to children. Each canvas was survival, each brushstroke a declaration. You would not disappear. Yet even as you built this fragile independence, the pain of betrayal lingered. Not just from Robert, he had always seen you as an obstacle, but from your mother, the woman who once cheered at every scribble, now standing against you. That was the deepest cut. And it is that wound, unhealed and festering, that makes the message on your phone years later so devastating. Because it proves what you feared all along. That in your mother's eyes, guided by Robert's hand, you no longer belonged. The night you walked away with nothing but your suitcase and sketchbooks should have been the end of your family's hold on you. But instead, it became the start of a deeper kind of exile, one written in silence, distance, and betrayals you never imagined possible. At first, you tried to keep contact. You called on birthdays, sent cards on holidays, even dropped by once or twice. Each time, Robert's presence hovered like a storm cloud, darkening every attempt. He had a way of filling the room with his authority, making even your mother's voice smaller. If you brought up your art, he dismissed it. If you asked about the trust, he changed the subject. And your mother followed his lead, offering you little more than polite words and strained smiles. You realized soon enough that every conversation was really with him, even when you were speaking to her. But the sharpest blow came one autumn afternoon, when you received a letter from the bank confirming what you had feared. The trust, your father's legacy, was gone. Not invested. Not paused. Gone. Redirected to accounts under Robert's name, authorized by your mother's signature. The paper trembled in your hands. It wasn't just money. It was your father's promise, his final safeguard for you, dissolved with a stroke of a pen. You rushed home, heart pounding, demanding answers. Robert was waiting in the living room, calm and unbothered. "We did what was best for the family," close quote, he said, his tone dripping with finality. "It wasn't yours to take," close quote, you shot back. "It was for my future. My father trusted you, both of you, to protect me." Robert leaned forward, a smirk curling his lips. "Your father wanted stability. You're chasing dreams with no guarantee. Lily, on the other hand, has a clear path. Private school, connections, opportunities. That money is securing her place in the world. That's what James would have wanted." Your voice cracked, raw with anger. "Don't you dare speak for him. He knew me. He believed in me." But before you could say more, your mother entered. Her eyes were tired, her voice firm. "Enough. We agreed to this. It was for Lily's future. You need to understand." Her words hit harder than Robert's smugness ever could. She wasn't coerced. She wasn't unaware. She had chosen his side. Your chest burned. You chose her over me. You chose him over me. Her silence confirmed what you already knew. That night, you packed again. But this time, it wasn't just clothes. It was the last pieces of your childhood, the last remnants of believing you belonged in that house. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. You survived on commission work, late-night shifts at a gallery, and teaching art classes to children who reminded you of yourself, hopeful, eager, unbroken. You learned to stretch every dollar, to rely on your own hands, to build a life that was fragile but yours. Still, every so often, your phone lit up with reminders of a world you'd left behind. Photos of Lily at recitals, smiling with your mother and Robert at her side. Social media posts about vacations in Greece, banquets in glittering halls, new cars parked in front of the mansion. Their lives looked golden, untouched, while you fought for rent and groceries. And then, on a rainy evening, your mother called. You almost didn't answer, but some part of you still longed for her voice. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Robert says you need to grow up. Stop wasting time with your art. Come back home, take business courses. If you cooperate, maybe things can change." Her words shattered what little hope you had left. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command, wrapped in Robert's voice, delivered through her. "I won't come back," close quote, you said. "Not to him. Not to a house that doesn't see me." There was silence. Then she said, cold and clipped, If that's your choice, don't expect support. You made your bed. Lie in it. The call ended. The line went dead. And with it, the last thread tying you to her. But betrayal has a way of compounding. Months later, you were preparing for a small exhibition at a local gallery, a chance to finally show your work, to prove that you weren't just surviving but thriving. You sent invitations to everyone, including your mother, clinging to the faintest hope she might come. The night of the show arrived. The room filled with chatter, the smell of fresh paint, the buzz of possibility. People stopped at your canvases, murmured praise, asked questions. For a brief moment, you felt seen again. Then you spotted them, your mother, Robert, and Lily sweeping in like royalty. Relief surged. Maybe, finally, she had come to support you. But as they approached, the truth became clear. They weren't there for you. They barely glanced at your paintings. Instead, Robert clasped hands with a wealthy patron, steering the conversation toward Lily's future, dropping hints about her artistic potential. Your mother smiled and nodded, introducing Lily as the true artist of the family. Your stomach dropped. They hadn't come for you. They had come to network, to redirect the spotlight, to erase you even from your own moment. When one guest mistakenly congratulated your mother on your daughter's exhibition, close quote, she gestured toward Lily, correcting them without hesitation. Yes, she's very talented, isn't she? Close quote, you froze. Words tangled in your throat, rage boiling just beneath the surface. It was your name on the flyers, your work on the walls, your sweat and tears in every brushstroke. And still, they found a way to overshadow you. That night, you didn't confront them. You let them leave, the laughter echoing as they swept out with their new connections. But inside, something hardened. If they thought you were invisible, you would prove them wrong. If they believed your father's legacy could be erased, you would bring it back. You didn't know how yet. But you knew this. You wouldn't be silenced again. And so, the betrayal that had once broken you became the fire that fueled you. The humiliation of that exhibition clung to you like a second skin. Every compliment you'd received that night was drowned out by the memory of your mother pointing to Lily, as though you had been nothing more than a placeholder in your own story. For days, you couldn't bring yourself to pick up a brush. But anger has a way of demanding movement, and eventually, it drove you forward. One evening, while sketching aimlessly at a cafe, you overheard a familiar name, your father's. The man at the next table was Walter, a former colleague who had worked alongside him for years. You hadn't seen him since the funeral. His eyes lit up with recognition, then darkened with something heavier. Carly, close quote, he said softly, I've been meaning to reach you. You leaned in, heart pounding. He explained what you had suspected but never proven. Robert had manipulated his way into your father's company long before the marriage. Subtle at first, persuasive suggestions, small power plays, but always with the goal of gaining control. When your father grew ill, Robert swooped in, using the chaos to consolidate his position. By the time of his passing, Robert was already pulling strings, ensuring your mother leaned entirely on him. Walter's voice trembled as he handed you a worn folder. Inside were photocopies of memos, contracts, signatures, evidence that Robert had diverted resources and undercut your father's original plans. He dismantled everything James built, close quote, Walter said. And now he's doing the same to you. Your hands shook as you turned the pages. Every line confirmed what your gut had screamed for years. Robert's rise was built on betrayal. Robert's rise was built on betrayal. Armed with this, you felt a surge of resolve. For too long, you had lived in the shadows of his lies. Now you had proof. You arranged to meet your mother, folder in hand. She sat across from you at a quiet diner, her expression guarded. Mom, close quote, you began, sliding the folder toward her. Robert didn't just take the trust. He destroyed everything Dad built. Look at this. Please. Her hands hovered over the papers but didn't touch them. She shook her head. I don't want to see it. Why not? Close quote, you pressed. Because deep down you already know. Close quote, her eyes filled with tears, but her voice hardened. Robert takes care of us. He gives Lily opportunities. He provides stability. I can't risk losing that. The words stung worse than denial. She wasn't blind, she was choosing comfort over truth. Before you could respond, Robert appeared, sliding into the booth beside her. I wondered when you'd try something like this, close quote, he said coolly, plucking the folder from the table. He flipped through the pages with a smirk. Outdated. Irrelevant. Desperate. You reached for the folder, but he snapped it shut. You'll never win, Carly. You're an artist, not a fighter. Leave this alone, or you'll regret it. Your mother sat frozen, silent, her eyes darting between you and him. That night, when you returned to your apartment, the door was ajar. Inside, chaos. Drawers yanked open, canvases slashed, the folder gone. The violation cut deeper than the loss of evidence. He had been here. He had crossed into your space, your sanctuary, and taken what wasn't his. For the first time, you felt fear coil around your determination. But alongside it burned something stronger: rage. He had underestimated you, again. Days later, you received a call from Harold, a lawyer who had once represented your father's estate. His tone was urgent. "Carly, I think you should know the FBI is investigating Robert. Fraud, embezzlement, financial manipulation. It's only a matter of time before they move." Your breath caught. "How do you know?" Close quote. "They reached out to me for records," close quote, Harold said. "They're building a case, and your testimony could be crucial." It was like a door swinging open in a room you thought was locked forever. For years, Robert had convinced you that you were powerless, but suddenly, the balance shifted. The system he had manipulated was turning against him. Still, you hesitated. Fear whispered that he was untouchable, that your mother would never forgive you if you stood against him. But then you remembered your father's voice. "Never let anyone take your gift away." This wasn't just about art anymore. This was about truth. Before you could act, another shock arrived. Late one night, your phone buzzed with a message, not from Robert, not from Harold, but from your mother. "We need to talk. I know the truth now." The next morning, you met her at the park near your childhood home. She looked smaller than you remembered, as if years of denial had finally collapsed onto her shoulders. Tears streaked her cheeks as she spoke. "It wasn't me," close quote, she whispered. "That message, the one that said you had no home, I never sent it. Robert took my phone. He wanted to push you away, to make you hate me." The ground tilted beneath you. For so long, you had believed those words came from her heart. They had haunted you, shaped every wall you built around yourself. And now you learned they weren't hers at all. "I let him control everything," close quote, she admitted, voice breaking. "I thought I was protecting Lily, but I was just letting him destroy us. I'm so sorry, Carly. I should have believed in you. I should have defended you." Her confession cracked something open in you. The anger didn't vanish, but it shifted, no longer aimed solely at her. She had been a victim too, ensnared in Robert's web. At that moment, you understood. The revenge you sought wasn't just about reclaiming what was yours. It was about freeing her and Lily from the grip of a man who had stolen everything. You took her trembling hand and whispered, "Then help me stop him." The words "then help me stop him" hung in the air like a vow. For the first time in years, you and your mother weren't opponents, you were allies, joined by grief, regret, and a shared need for freedom. The following weeks became a blur of movement. You met with Harold again, this time with your mother by your side. She brought documents Robert had hidden, old financial statements, and even notes in your father's handwriting. Each piece painted the same picture. Robert's empire was built on deceit. Harold assured you the FBI was closing in, but your voice, your testimony could make the difference. At night, you lay awake, sketchbook forgotten at your side, the weight of it all pressing down. Fear whispered that Robert would retaliate. But stronger than fear was the image of your father's face, proud and steady, urging you forward. When the summons came, it was almost a relief. The courtroom was colder than you imagined, the air heavy with anticipation. Robert sat across the room, immaculate in his tailored suit, his expression smug despite the gravity of the charges. But for the first time, he looked smaller to you. Not invincible. Not untouchable. Just a man cornered by his own lies. You took the stand. Your voice trembled at first, but as you spoke, strength grew. You told the story of your father's trust, of the inheritance siphoned away, of the years of manipulation. You recounted the night you found your apartment ransacked, the evidence stolen. You revealed the cruel message that had severed you from your mother, proof not of her betrayal, but of his control. Every word landed like a stone in water, rippling through the room. Robert shifted, his mask cracking. He objected, sneered, tried to twist your testimony into bitterness. But the evidence was there, undeniable, reinforced by your mother's documents and Walter's testimony. When the verdict came, it was swift. Guilty. Fraud, embezzlement, manipulation. The man who once seemed untouchable was led away in handcuffs, his empire collapsing around him. The silence that followed was different from the silence of betrayal. This silence was full of release, a weight lifted after years of suffocation. Your mother reached for your hand outside the courthouse, her grip trembling. "I can never undo the pain," close quote, she whispered, "but I can start making it right. If you let me." You studied her face, the lines of regret, the raw sincerity, and nodded. Forgiveness wouldn't come overnight, but it could begin. In the weeks that followed, life shifted in ways you never expected. The house that once felt like a prison was sold, its proceeds placed back into a trust honoring your father's original vision. For the first time, Lily saw Robert not as a hero, but as the man who had nearly destroyed her family. She clung to you, confused but eager to rebuild a bond you thought was lost. Your mother began therapy, peeling back the layers of control she had lived under for so long. She showed up at your studio one afternoon with coffee and flowers, quietly sitting in the corner as you painted. She didn't speak much, but her presence said more than words. She was choosing to see you again. And you, after years of scraping by, found yourself thriving. The notoriety of the trial had brought attention to your art. Galleries reached out, eager to showcase not just your talent but the story behind it. You decided to pour everything you had into one exhibition, a collection you titled Reconstructions. The opening night was unlike anything you had imagined. The gallery buzzed with anticipation, the walls alive with canvases that told your journey. Bright beginnings, dark betrayals, shattered fragments, and finally, pieces stitched back together. Each painting was a chapter of survival, a testament to resilience. As you stood among the crowd, your heart raced. Would they understand? Would they see? Then you spotted her, your mother, walking slowly through the gallery, Lily at her side. They stopped in front of a piece that showed a broken lock transforming into a blooming flower. Your mother's eyes filled with tears. Lily reached for her hand, then turned to you with a smile. "This one's my favorite," close quote, Lily said softly. Your mother stepped closer, her voice breaking. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful. And I'm so proud of you." The words you had longed for all your life finally reached you, not as empty gestures, but as truth. That night, as applause filled the gallery and collectors lined up to purchase your work, you realized this was more than an exhibition. It was a reclamation. You weren't the forgotten child, the invisible artist, the daughter erased. You were Carly, your father's daughter, your mother's redemption, your own person. Justice had been served. Betrayal had been answered. But more importantly, dignity had been restored. And when you blew out the candle on the cake, they surprised you with a small gesture, but one filled with meaning you didn't wish for recognition. You already had it. Your family revenge story had come full circle, not with vengeance in flames, but with truth, justice, and the quiet power of being seen. In the end, you finally understand. Revenge was never about destruction. It was about reclaiming the voice that had been stolen from you, about refusing to live as a shadow in your own story. Robert is gone, the empire he built on deceit dismantled piece by piece. But the deeper victory lies not in his downfall, but in your rising. Your art has become more than expression, it is testimony. Every brushstroke carries the weight of survival, the echo of your father's faith, the renewal of your mother's love, and the fragile but steady bond with your sister. What once was fractured now begins to mend, not perfectly, but with honesty. You look around at the life you have rebuilt, the gallery filled with light, the family slowly learning to stand together again, and you know this is justice. Not the kind written only in courtrooms, but the kind written in dignity, in truth, in being seen for who you truly are. Your family revenge story does not end in bitterness. It ends in balance, in healing, in the quiet triumph of standing tall. And now, one question remains for anyone listening. If it were you, how would your story end?